There's other really important things, especially as counsel, that you want to look at, and that's things like your IP. Do they own their IP? Is it your IP? What about your confidential information? What about your data? Did you restrict their ability to go and work for somebody after they leave you? And if so, for how long? Are you worried about that? So there's a lot around those employment contractual terms that need to be looked at, and that's obviously where GCs come in.
When you get into it, you find out quite quickly there's a lot of overreach, a huge amount of flexibility and rights that the bank gives themselves that frankly aren't justified at all. That when you start scratching and sort of poking at it, you find actually you can negotiate quite a lot, and they're things that can really matter to how the deal progresses for the benefit of the fintech.
Quite often, for example, you might be looking at a new product or feature, and the discussion at the risk and compliance meeting committee would actually bring out issues around more broadly how the product would work, how it would be designed, beyond just regulatory stuff, but actually just like the actual core features of the product.
If you've got the luxury of time, you'll do it up front. More often than not, you're doing it as and when a situation arises.
But you've got to pick your battles carefully.
Well, I think compliance should definitely be looking at how it can support the business and make their life easier and make compliance as straightforward as possible. But I also think it's very important for all the functions in a firm to work closely with compliance.
If your workplace isn't healthy, if people can't work together, if they can't collaborate, if tensions arise, that obviously can affect things like productivity and how you go to market and the service delivery. But also, fundamentally, from an employment law perspective, it can create legal risk. You could be looking at things like complaints and grievances. You could be looking at things like discrimination claims if people feel, for example, they've been treated differently and inconsistently to somebody else in their team. If people are working so hard that they burn out or they get stressed because they're being bullied or harassed, then obviously you worry about that from a health perspective. Also from a stress claim perspective, it could impact your insurance. There's all sorts of things where legal risk can be created.
If you're acting for a fintech and they get into one of these deals, it's a big operation. It's a big expense of time and therefore runway. So that you should only be going into it if you are committed to it, but that's very much at the forefront all the way through should be that pragmatism about what's worth fighting on and what isn't worth fighting on. There's no way that as a fintech doing a deal with a big institution, you're not going to end up taking risk on all sorts of clauses where you look at it and think, well, I wouldn't normally do that. You're not going to get away with getting the document to a perfect place.
You need to have a shared approach to things. So if you're taking decisions about risk, there needs to be a shared understanding of why you're taking those decisions, because things are not always black and white. And I think that rather than having an approach of, legal says you can do this, you can't do that, without any real explanation, or just kind of as if it's like kind of being passed down from the mountain, you need to have that joint kind of mature approach where you can have that discussion and people can really understand why it is that certain decisions are made, or they can influence on exactly what decisions you make with an understanding of what the regulatory landscape is.
Tone, particularly in the financial services sector, we always say tone is set from the top. There are other very practical things though from a legal risk perspective that you can do as GC.
I think the trick is in knowing what the things are that are worth fighting on, because they have a direct impact on how your business is going to grow and succeed in that partnership, versus the things which look quite scary and technically are quite scary. They could be technically some very big risks, but are quite unlikely to happen in real life. They're things that are probably more technical risks than they are day-to-day operational risks. So there's no point in kind of winning every point on the audit clause if you haven't sorted out the thing that's going to stop you from getting paid for huge amounts of time, or is going to hold you into that relationship even if the relationship is failing and you want to be able to go out and talk to another bank, for instance, in an exclusivity context. Process
is just something that is very important but isn't talked about that much. It's just not that sexy.
Okay.
No one really wants to spend their time talking about how they do this and that from a process point of view, when they could be discussing the latest regulation that's come in or the latest fine from a regulator. But actually, it's actually very, very practical, and quite often we see where firms have dropped the ball. It's been where they just haven't done the process side of things properly, and that's where you get problems.
There is something so satisfying about supporting businesses that are in this fast growth stage, seeing them succeed, being part of the solutions, and just seeing them grow and develop. It's fabulous.
Some of the most successful fintech deals I've seen with banks on the other side have been the ones where, often because it's quite complicated, the fintech has set out really early on what it is they really want from the deal.
It can mean that issues with products are identified earlier in the process, so you don't spend resource developing something that won't work for some reason or another.
It's scrappier, you have to be a lot more inventive about it. It's a lot more fun.